morning, students of Standard 10. Welcome back. In continuation with the moderates, we'll continue the moderates' policies, their demands, and some of the moderates who contributed to the national struggle for freedom. Now, as we told you, the moderates, they believed in liberal politics. They used constitutional methods to achieve their aim, and so they presented before the imperial government in the form of prayer, petition and resolution. But at the same time, their aim was to attain a self-government within the British Empire. Therefore, they laid certain demands to the British Legislative Council to fulfill the demands in different forms, because they openly criticized the British policies of faulty government, their economic exploitation, and also their lowering down the certain ages of the civil service examinations and all. So they wanted to have a wider representation of more Indians in the Legislative Council, and therefore they put down the demands in different forms. Now let us categorize the different demands of the moderates. So the demands of the moderates can be classified into three categories, like we have the economic reforms, constitutional reforms and the administrative reforms. So they presented their demands before His Majesty's government to fulfill their aims and objectives of the moderates. Now the first phase we have the economic reforms. The moderates, they believed in broad bracing of the legislative councils and having more and more Indians to be given chance in the administrative setup. So therefore they laid down certain reform. That means the Indian industry should be encouraged by withdrawing concession given to the British goods. So the Indian native industries were shuttered as the British drained away the enormous wealth from India and at a very low rate and brought the finished goods in the Indian market and sold them at a very high price. So this created a setback to the Indian industries, and therefore they put that the Indian industry should be encouraged by withdrawing concession given to the British goods, so that the Indian goods should also be given impetus, that means importance. Secondly, land revenue should be reduced. So therefore they are charging a heavy land revenue. It was very difficult for the common people or the peasant to pay, and so they said that the land revenue should be reduced and a permanent settlement of the land should be carried on. Not that any time they may increase or decrease, a permanent settlement of the land should be carried on. So they asked for a permanent settlement of the land. Thirdly, the salt tax should be withdrawn. So they used to charge the tax on salt, and the moderates, they demanded that they should remove this tax. That is, the salt tax should be withdrawn. Fourthly, we have expenditure on military to be reduced. So they demanded that the certain expenditure, huge expenditure was used for the military, and this was charged from the Indians only. And so they pleaded that expenditure on military expenses should be cut off or should be reduced to the minimum. Then Indians should be employed in administrative services or in the branch of administration, because the Indians were not employed how much qualified they were, and so the moderates pleaded that Indians should be employed in administration. More Indians should be given chance in the administration set up by the British. So in short, we say these were the economic reforms of the moderates. Now coming back with the constitutional reforms, the moderates fully criticized the constitutional methods followed by the British, and so they were not happy with the certain laws they made or certain constitutional reforms they took out, and so they put behind British their demands and their grievances so that they may be looked upon. So some of the constitutional reforms where the legislative council should have more native Indians, as Indians were not given any representation in the legislative council. So they asked for more broad basing of the legislative council. That means more native Indians should be included in the legislative council, not only the British, but more Indians should be given in the legislative council. Secondly, the members of the legislative council should be directly elected by the people, not by the British. So British, they used to only elect some of their own persons, or we may call it they followed the nepotism and only put those people there who would favor the British. But it should be directly elected by the people. The people should elect their representatives to the legislative council so that they can understand the problem better, not by directly nominating by the British. So they wanted the members of the legislative council should be directly elected by the people, not indirectly elected by the administration or by the British Parliament in London. Clear? Then complete separation between the executive and the judicial branch of administration. So the Indians, the moderates, believed in complete separation of the executive and the judicial branch of administration. Why? Because if there is no separation done, so the executive may overrule the judicial branch and the decision can be given in their favor. And so because most of the Indians were not given higher opportunities, like if you recall back, I have dealt about with the Ilbert Bill controversy. That means he had that Ilbert suggested that the Indians could be able to hear the cases of the Europeans, but the English denied this and it became a controversy. That's why they said the complete separation between the executive and the judicial branch of administration. That means the executive should not override the judicial branch. The judicial must be free and fair to give its decision independently without being influenced by the executive. Next is the moderates. Their aim was to get self-government within the British rule, and they pleaded for self-government, and they said that the models of the self-governing colonies, the India should have a self-government on the models of the self-governing colonies like Canada and Australia. Clear? So they had these constitutional reforms. Now coming back to the administrative reforms. So I told you that the administration also, the moderates criticized the faulty policies of the government, their faulty administration policies, and they wanted to have certain reforms in the administrative setup. And therefore they said more Indians in the administration. So therefore, if they pleaded for giving chance to more Indians in the administration setup, so that they will be able to solve their problems better if more Indians are employed in the administration setup of the country. So therefore they pleaded for broad basing of the Legislative Council and more Indians in the administration setup by the British. Clear? Second, the Arms Act to be repealed. That means repeal means to taken back. Previously I have told you about Lytton's policy of Arms Act. That means the Europeans and the Indians were not allowed to carry arms without a license, but the Europeans were an exception to this act. So the moderates pleaded that the Arms Act should be repealed, taken back. Clear? Then the ICS, Indian Civil Service Examination, to be held simultaneously in England and India. So the moderates, they believed that, they demanded that the ICS or Indian Civil Service Examination should be held simultaneously in India and England, not that separately, so that the educated Indians will have a fair chance in competition or competing with the Europeans or with the English, so that if the examinations are held simultaneously in both India and England. So these were, in short, we call it the administrative reforms of the moderates that demanded. So the moderates, I told you, they were of the moderates' nature. They believed in liberalism, gradual politics, and therefore they pleaded through the prayers, petition, and resolution. And these were, in short, the demands. But in short, the moderates did not achieve much aim, but really they achieved in setting a base for nationalism. They were the ones who they created the base for the Indian nationalism. So in our topic today, we have the demands. We have already done about the principles, the aim and objectives of the moderates, but these were the demands of the moderates. So I have tried to analyze by taking the reduced syllabus of the council by the demands. Though the demands are not there in much, but at least 3 to 4 demands you should be knowing in this one. Then coming will be the contribution of the moderates. In the contribution of the moderates, we have at least 3 moderates: Dadabhai Naroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Surendranath Banerjee. So you have to know about the contribution of these 3 nationalist leaders in the national struggle for freedom. That is how they have contributed to the freedom struggle of the country. So you have to know about them. This question frequently comes and with a picture basis. So I have tried to modify with certain importance of these moderates and their contribution in a simplified way by presenting their work in the national movement. Okay. Now we take away with the contribution of the 3 moderates like Dadabhai Naroji, Surendranath Banerjee and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. So you have to at least know 4 major contribution of each of these nationalist leaders, that means the modern leaders in their struggle for freedom. So let us have a look of those freedom or those works of these nationalist leaders or moderates who contributed to a greater extent in India's national struggle for freedom. Let us see this. Dadabhai Naroji was born in 1825 at Khadak, Maharashtra, in the house of a poor Parsi priest. He studied in Elphinstone College and became an assistant professor of mathematics in this college. In 1855, after some time, he left teaching and became a partner of a Parsi business company and went to England. However, he left the business and came back to India. In 1873, he became the Diwan of Baroda. He left his post also and was elected the members of the Mumbai Municipal Corporation and Town Council. In 1892, he became a member of the House of Commons on the Liberals Party ticket from Finsbury, England. He was president of the Indian National Congress thrice, in 1886, in 1893 and 1906. Dadabhai Naroji was popularly known as the Grand Old Man of India. He was one of the first leaders of the national movement. Dadabhai Naroji founded the East India Association in 1866 in England to foster close relationship between the Indians and the British on the social level. Dadabhai Naroji was an economist. He analyzed the economies of British rule in India in his famous book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. In this book, he propounded his famous brain theory. It explains the nature of exploitation of Indian masses and the cause of poverty in India. Dadabhai Naroji died in 1917 at the age of 92 years. He was a great patriot and a devout political worker. In the House of the Commons, he said that the evil of foreign rule in India involved the triple loss of wealth, wisdom and work. Next we have Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gopal Krishna Gokhale was born on 1866 to 1915. According to Pitabhai Sitamarya, Gopal Krishna Gokhale was the greatest statesman of modern India.
the editor of Nation, published from England, and commented on there was no statesman in India compared to Gokhale. Gokhale was a moderate in politics. He believed in gradualism and constitutional methods. He believed in British and their sense of justice and fair play. He assured the Indians that the British would leave India as soon as they realized that the Indians were now capable of self-government. Reconstruction of India was not possible with a violent storm, but it was possible only through the British help. Some of the critics termed Gokhale as a faint-hearted moderate, while the British termed him as a seditionist in disguise. But Gokhale was neither of the two. He was a constructive leader. He strove for equal rights of Indians in recruitment to civil services, and he strove for abolition of the salt tax. Gokhale established the Servants of India Society. This society had rare distinction of giving India men like Srinivas Sastry, G.K. Devadar, N.M. Joshi, Pandit H.N. Kunjru, and Amrit Lal Thakur, Mahatma Gandhi, etc. Mahatma Gandhi wrote about Gokhale that Sir Firoz Shah Mehta was like the Himalayas, Tilak was like an ocean, but Gokhale was like the holy river, Ganges, which invited everyone. But Gokhale died in 1950.
Surendranath Banerjee has been called the father of nationalist movement in India. He was born in 1848. After receiving his education, he appeared in Indian Civil Service examination. He got through the examination but was never accepted for any post. He protested against the British policy of discrimination and founded the Indian Association in 1876. He extensively toured the country and aroused political consciousness among the educated Indians. He also edited a newspaper in Bengali. He founded Ripon College. He was the founding member of the Indian National Congress. He protested against Lord Curzon's decision of partition of Bengal on communal lines. He cleared many Western prejudices against India. He said in England that the Indians were not half Negro and half gorilla, but the descendants of a very high culture. Surendranath Banerjee felt the need of an organization of all India character to project and highlight India's problem and to provide the Indians with a common forum to ventilate their grievances. Though he was loyal to the British and openly admitted this like the other moderates, he was the first and the foremost a nationalist. He showed his genuine concern for the plight of Indians and breakdown of Indian economy. He preached that the sole reason of poverty of India was the British regime pursuing the faulty policies. He had sympathies for Swadeshi and boycott movement. In 1918, Bondford reforms were suggested. Surendranath Banerjee disagreed with official policy of the Congress and resigned from the Congress membership. He assumed the charge of minister in the Daiichi in Bengal. The British government knighted him. He died in 1925.